How do some games make you feel tense, even when nothing is actively chasing you? How do they build that quiet sense of dread, the kind that sneaks up on you and keeps you on edge? Tension in game design is one of the most powerful tools to keep players hooked. But how do you create that tension without overwhelming the player? One game that nails this balance is Feed the Deep, a 2D underwater exploration game designed by Luke Muscat. Don't let the minimalist design fool you though. This game is a prime example of how to create tension in a simple, elegant way. You don't need complex graphics or massive monsters to keep players on the edge of their seats. With subtle mechanics and smart design, Feed the Deep proves that even a basic 2D experience can make you feel like you're constantly one breath away from disaster. So today, let's dive into how it uses simplicity to build tension and what we can learn from it. At the start of each dive, everything feels manageable. The world is bright, the music is soothing, and you can see far ahead. It's like the game is telling you, relax, you've got this. But as you start descending, the atmosphere changes, the visible area shrinks, and the darkness around you becomes more oppressive, leaving you dependent on a narrow flashlight beam to find your way forward. This mirrors the design of Subnautica, where the surface feels calm, but the deeper you go, the more claustrophobic and threatening the environment becomes. The sound design shifts along with the visuals. As you descend, the music fades, and your breathing becomes more prominent, reminding you that survival depends on your oxygen supply. The beauty here is that most players might not even notice these changes consciously. The game is quietly building tension behind the scenes, using subtle shifts in sound and light to create a creeping sense of anxiety. When you finally return to the surface, the music returns, giving you a brief sense of relief. But that feeling doesn't last long, because the only way forward is to dive back into the unknown, with darkness and danger waiting below. This careful balance of tension and release keeps you engaged without ever feeling overwhelming. It's a perfect demonstration of how much impact subtle changes to light and audio can have on a player's emotional state. Lighting plays a crucial role in Feed the Deep. The character is surrounded by a small, dim aura of light, giving just enough visibility to see immediately around them. But beyond that, it's the flashlight that becomes your primary tool for navigation, casting a narrow beam of light to illuminate the area directly in front of you. This flashlight is directional, creating a narrow cone of light that limits what you can see, leaving you constantly aware of what might be lurking just outside your field of vision. To add to the tension, the flashlight doesn't respond instantly. When you turn it, there's a slight delay, which keeps you from reacting as quickly as you'd like. This echoes the design found in games like Darkwood, where slow, limited visibility heightens your sense of vulnerability. Normally, games benefit from tight, responsive controls, but Feed the Deep takes the opposite approach. The deliberate sluggishness of the flashlight enhances the feeling of helplessness, reducing your sense of control and making the experience more tense. It's a reminder that sometimes limiting player control can actually heighten engagement by creating a more intense emotional response. Central to the game's tension is its oxygen system. Every dive starts with a full tank of oxygen that slowly depletes as you explore underwater. Managing this resource is crucial. You need to gauge how far you can push before you're forced to return to the surface. However, there's no countdown timer telling you exactly how much time you have left. Instead, you're left to rely on a gauge in the user interface that isn't perfectly precise. This ambiguity means that every decision you make, whether to dive deeper for more loot or to head back to safety, comes with an added layer of risk. The lack of clarity forces you to act on instinct, turning what would have been a straightforward oxygen management system into a much tenser, more engaging experience. By not giving players an exact countdown, the game creates a sense of constant uncertainty. It's a familiar mechanic, but the game elevates it by keeping you guessing, making every dive feel like a race against time. As you descend deeper, you start to find more valuable resources, which are essential for upgrading your gear and progressing further into the game. But the more loot you pick up, the slower you move, making your journey back to the surface increasingly risky. This mechanic creates an ongoing internal conflict. Do you risk collecting more valuable resources, knowing it might slow you down enough to stop you from making it back in time? Or do you leave with fewer resources to ensure a safer return? What really drives the tension is that every piece of loot becomes a potential risk, turning simple resource collection into a series of kinda high-stakes decisions. The beauty of this system is that it turns a seemingly mundane choice, whether or not to pick up a resource, into a meaningful moment. Every decision carries weight, and that's what keeps the player engaged. The constant trade-off between greed and survival forces you to consider every move carefully. The procedurally generated levels in Feed the Deep make every dive feel fresh and unpredictable. Since the layout changes each time you descend, you can't rely on memorizing the environment, forcing you to react to new situations as they arrive. This unpredictability adds a layer of tension that keeps you on your toes throughout the dive. To make things even more difficult, there's no map. There's no minimap, no landmarks really to guide you around. It's just you and your memory, which means you're constantly second-guessing your movements. Did you dive too deep? Can you find your way back before your oxygen runs out? This sense of disorientation, similar to the feeling in Don't Starve, makes every move feel risky. You're never quite sure if you'll make it back on time, and that uncertainty keeps you constantly alert. Procedural generation here isn't just a development shortcut, it's a core part of the design. By creating unpredictable layouts and removing a map, the game ensures that every dive feels unique and dangerous, forcing players to stay sharp and adapt to the unknown. Feed the Deep teaches us that you don't need massive set pieces to create tension. Smart, subtle design choices can do the job. The shrinking light and fading sound build a sense of isolation, while the sluggish flashlight shows how reducing control can actually heighten vulnerability. The oxygen system, without a precise countdown, creates uncertainty, making every dive feel like a race against time. Add the gathering mechanic, where collecting resources slows you down, and you're constantly weighing survival against greed. The procedurally generated levels and lack of a map take unpredictability to the next level, ensuring that every dive feels unique and dangerous. It's a reminder that procedural generation can be a key part of a game's tension. Feed the Deep proves that even in a simple 2D format, you can create heart-pounding tension. But tension alone isn't enough. Games also need the right balance of simplicity and complexity, like in Thronefall. To learn more about that, check out my breakdown of the game right here. For now though, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next time.